I am Eric Greenberg, Chair of the CA Board of Directors. Please remember that this meeting of the CA Board Operations Committee is being recorded but not live streamed. You can find tonight's agenda and background materials on the CA Board Operations Committee web page on the CA website. If you're virtual, please mute your microphones unless speaking. If you're in the room, please ensure that your cell phones are silenced. Raise your hand to speak and I'll record the names in the order in which I see them. If you're virtual, raise your hands on the virtual chat feature. As we move through the meeting, I will introduce each item on the agenda. Before a vote is taken, I will restate a motion as well as who motioned it and seconded. If at any point you have trouble hearing me or any other board member, please say so. I will now call the roll of tonight's voting members on the BOC meeting. Jenny.
Yeah.
Dennis.
Here.
Brian.
Yes.
Lynn.
Here.
And I am here. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Jenny moves.
A second.
Lynn seconds. Any objections to the agenda? The agenda is so moved. I got the first thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes by consent. Seeing no objections, the minutes of the November 28th meeting is approved by consent. The first discussion topic is the March 9th, 2023 work session. So do we have any discussion on the March 9th, 2023 work session? Right now there are 0 minutes. There's 0 minutes left to be, all the minutes are accounted for.
Okay, I have a few suggestions.
Okay.
Expand it for 4 hours and we'll get them all in. No.
There is no fire alarm on the agenda, so
No.
so we can't exceed the alarm this time.
Okay. If you want to be difficult, okay. Okay, call to order is the first thing on there, so I left that as, I'll just go down. 5 minutes, announcement of the meetings, 1 minute. Approval of the agenda, 1 minute, although we wonder some days. And I changed resident speak out based on what's been happening from 60 minutes to 30 minutes. So that's a total of 37 minutes for the governance and standing topics, okay? Then we get into work session topics.
So what I'd suggest is just make a motion for any changes and we'll worry about the times afterwards.
Sure. Okay, so I'd like to move some changes. Well, resident speak out is a change, but okay.
No, change to the item, not necessarily the.
Okay.
We'll worry about the times afterwards.
All right. I'd like to cut CA Board, delete CA Board plans strategic initiatives for the upcoming year. I don't even know what that means, and I don't think we have the time to really deal with it on March 9th. I think there are too many pressing things that we have to deal with, and we have no preparation. I don't think it's appropriate to have it on the calendar at this point. So I was moving to delete that.
Can I
Instead add.
What was you deleted?
Can I get a second to delete the
CA Board work plan, strategic initiatives for the upcoming fiscal year, and
it's
I'm going
the third one. Okay, so can I get a motion to
substitute something else.
Yeah, can I get a motion to delete the?
So moved.
Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion on deleting the strategic initiatives plan?
Are you going to put it somewhere else?
No, it's just being deleted.
It's just I don't see any need, and there are other things that have to be dealt with.
All in favor of deleting the strategic initiative plan?
Yeah.
All opposed? The strategic initiative plan is deleted by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, and add instead, and we can reword this if you want, presentation of timeline for hiring president/CEO. And I put 20 minutes, but okay, we don't want to talk about time.
We can talk about time.
So I move that
for new
we
things. If we're adding something new, we'll discuss the time.
So I move that we substitute, or we add to the agenda under work session topics, presentation of timeline for hiring president and CEO. And I assume, Dennis, that would be Monica?
Yes.
And you, or whatever. Okay.
20 minutes?
Well, whatever.
Yeah, that works. So we got a motion to add
I'm sorry, Eric, how many minutes, just so if I can help with that?
20 minutes for the presentation of the CEO hiring timeline.
Okay, thanks.
So that gives us a 5-minute balance.
Yeah, because we
Okay.
cut the 25 minutes of the other thing.
So can I get a second on that? Lynn seconds. Any further discussion on adding
The
this?
question is, if you're going to, with, who's going to be doing the timeline? We're discussing it, but what-
So HR would come up with a proposed
see, okay.
timeline. They would present it to us.
Okay, that's
We
what
would
you said,
discuss it.
Monica. Okay.
We would make any changes, we would discuss any changes we might want to make to it, and then we would vote on it at the next meeting.
got it, okay. Thank you.
So,
Okay, and
so
next-
on the motion, all in favor of adding the CEO timeline?
All right,
All opposed? The CEO timeline is added for 20 minutes by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, and I am leaving the discussion resolution regarding Lake Galcorn, and it would be my understanding that Brian's our lead on that, but he would be working with Dennis on that and see if we can make this a smooth presentation if possible. If not, that's the way it goes, but, on the wording for the March 9th meeting. And I'm also recommending that we delete the Audit Committee recommendation to the Board of Directors regarding governance and ethics matters, service on other boards and directors. I think we have beaten that to death. I think,
Can I get a second on deleting the Audit Committee recommendations discussion?
we're going to handle it in another way in the
Lynn-
ethics.
Lynn- Lynn-
It's not we're going to avoid ethics, it'll be
Lynn
handled in another.
seconds
And we
it.
still need legal counsel on this.
What?
I think we still need legal counsel on this.
I don't disagree, but not this way, where it's coming from somebody else that has
Yeah,
an opinion we've heard many times.
I'll also point out, we do have a policy for
Very
how
good.
IAT members should operate when they're operating
Maybe-
cross-board.
Maybe you should send that around to, or whatever, staff, send it around to the whole board, so
Yeah,
the
the-
whole board sees that.
Sheriff Anarov's policy,
It's from
the
2017.
2015.
There's one from,
That's Sherry, yeah.
I saw one from 2017. Yeah, there's an existing policy.
Well, we should take a look at it anyway, okay. So-
discussion,
Yeah, we're discussing whether to delete the Audit Committee recommendations.
They have it here.
Okay, so move.
Wait, so we got a motion by Ginny, second by Lynn, to remove the Audit Committee recommendations.
so I do have, I spoke with Michelle Cohen with Miles of Stockbridge today, and she would be able to provide a presentation and answer questions on this outside counsel on this specific issue.
On the specific issue? Ginny?
Yeah, I want to hear that, but I want to hear it when we deal with ethics code and ethics enforcement, which we'll talk about next. So it'll be, to me, more relevant rather than standing out there all by itself, which it's doing right now. It's not that I don't want to hear it. If that's my personal, yeah, I do. But it's not in this isolated, just deal with this one issue. It's got to be part of a comprehensive approach to ethics code and ethics enforcement. I'm tired of this one-on approach with changing things, which we've been doing for a while, and I don't think that's appropriate.
So the
I
question-
don't think it's appropriate for the public even. They should be seeing the whole thing.
So
That's just my 2 cents.
So they would be, Miles Stockbridge would be prepared to come in with a presentation to discuss this.
Yeah, that's,
Keep in mind, we approved the other 4 in the group of 5. This one was the one that got set aside.
This
of
one,
those
yeah, this
5.
one got set aside.
yeah, no, I understand.
I think the tough part for me with the Audit Committee recommendations from an approval standpoint is, okay, we approve them, but we didn't actually create policy. So I think one of the things I want to make sure is that when we're voting on things and we're approving things, we're actually creating policy that we can follow versus just approving things. Because you get recommendations and we've got them, we approve the recommendations, but we haven't actually done anything with it from a policy perspective. We've just approved recommendations. So I think the key thing from my standpoint is, how does this translate to policy that the board can approve?
I would think the policy would come out of the discussion And that you would, for instance, you might say that you, if you sit on both boards, you can't, the policy might say that you can't vote on matters of funding. I'm just, that's,
But that would assume that you had discussed those matters at that particular board. As Dick pointed out, the grant had never been discussed on the trust board. And in the villages, so much of what you discuss is budget with CA. Again, CA reps have no votes there, so I don't know why a CA rep would be recusing themselves. They don't vote on anything. I just think it's such a complicated, unusual situation, both of them. I don't know how we clarify our roles. We could not have CA reps on the trust board. That would be fine. It just, I think it's I think it's just so complicated. I think we need village input on some of this too. How do they want to treat their CA reps?
I have a question.
Sure.
What exactly is the assignment that Miles Stockbridge has been given? Are they writing a policy? Are they reviewing policies?
so what they are doing is they are reviewing best practices.
Just best practices. And what kind of advice are they going to, they want to give us a presentation on what those best
Yes.
practices are?
Which is what Venerable did.
Would they be looking at any documents that we have? I mean, there've been some things floating around. Would they be looking specifically at those, or?
So Michelle Cohen is familiar with, I think, probably most of our documents. So yes, she has background in that as well. She's very
Including
familiar
the
with
draft
IoT.
that's been circulated to the board recently?
I don't know if everything that was circulated to the board went to her as well, but I can find out.
Well, let me just send you what's currently in draft form.
So what you sent out today, or the final revision, is that what you're talking about?
Did I send today? I thought it was over the weekend, but yeah, whatever I sent out recently. This
So
is
that
final.
went to, out to Michelle.
Okay, good to hear.
So what I'm hearing is that we're going to have this presentation and they're going to come up with some recommendations for policy. Is that what you're saying?
So I would say they already have recommendations in mind as attorneys, and as what the best practices are, how those get put into practice here. It's an interesting position to be in because you are asked to sit on the board. CA asks you to sit on the board and then tells you that there might be a conflict. So it's interesting, but I think it would be helpful to have an attorney here to talk about best practices and also to answer questions, because these are not. It really is not that. It's really two issues, IAT and the villages, and she's very familiar with both.
Okay, good. Looking forward to that.
Okay. Okay, so I will take a roll call vote on deleting the audit committee recommendations for 30 minutes. If there's no further discussion on this. Ginny?
Yes.
Dennis?
Yeah.
Brian?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
I will, I'll vote yes. Motion passes. The audit committee recommendations are deleted.
Now, is Miles Standish
Can
going
I-
to make a presentation in lieu of that, or?
This is when,
They'll be doing it maybe 2 weeks from then. That's what I'm going to be suggesting.
So now it's all.
Can
now
I
it's
add
the
another
agenda.
thing to the agenda then, since we have this time
Now you
available?
got 30 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
Well, now you got 35 minutes.
so where are we putting in the presentation from Miles and Stockbridge?
You took it off. We just took it off the agenda.
We just took it off.
Did you mean to vote no?
I can see it happening in 2 weeks, the 23rd, if I can get to that, but what, I'm not saying we're not going to hear it, it's when we hear it.
Okay.
So instead, I'd like to add a discussion of CA board operations.
Wait, Brian, did
I'm
you,
sorry.
Yeah, I wasn't clear on, I thought what we were, okay,
did you want to reconsider the motion?
I'd just like to, I'd like to reconsider it and get clarification. I thought we were substituting what we got here with a presentation, so.
No. The motion by Ginny, seconded by Lynn, was to delete the audit committee recommendations to the board. So in January, we had a presentation from the audit committee.
Right.
And this would add another presentation, not from the audit committee, but from Miles Stockbridge, on the same topic of the IAT, of the board members on dual committees, either IAT or the village boards.
Which I was saying I want to hear, but it would be on the 23rd instead of the 9th, because I'd like to substitute starting a board discussion
We
on.
haven't thrown it out, we've thrown it off this particular agenda is going to go on another agenda. That's what I was trying to clarify. That's what I thought
It
was
wouldn't be
going on.
worded that way, but it would be the
Okay, so
hearing from them.
So we're going to bring it back in a minute.
Okay.
Okay,
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm looking at the calendar ahead of us, and we have a vote on the 23rd. Isn't that a little late for us to be finding out what Miles Stockbridge's recommendation is? Or
We also have
Well,
board
you won't be
discussion.
able to vote for it on the 23rd.
Yeah.
We also have
That would
board
have to, so
discussion.
if there's no discussion on this on the 9th, you're not going to be able to vote for it on the 23rd.
That's why I'm concerned.
Yeah, we'll have to take that off the agenda.
That's why I'd like to hear what Miles Stockbridge has to say. I don't want this thing, this thing just keeps getting pushed down the road, pushed down the
So-
road, pushed down the road. I think at this point, we've got time for Miles Stockbridge to make a quick presentation as to what best practices would be, so we have something to think about, and then we can vote on a policy on the 23rd.
So Brian, do you want to reconsider
I
the
would
motion?
retract I'd say,
Well, you need to move to reconsider the
I
previous
move to
motion.
reconsider this.
Okay, is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay, so Brian moves to reconsider the previous motion. I will,
May I ask a question of
Sure.
Dick? Do you anticipate that the ethics code and the ethics enforcement and procedures will cover this? Enforcement policy and procedures will cover this?
Cover what?
The whole idea of conflict as one of the things in there? And when a board member can vote, et cetera?
The draft ethics policy, the final draft, it's been reviewed and reviewed and reviewed.
Will it cover?
Has a piece in there on conflict of interest that says, I don't have it in front of me, but it says basically this is a complicated issue and that we have to be very careful if, as representatives of the villages and as crossover board members, to take into careful consideration our any possible conflicts. That's what it said.
anyway, we should probably vote on the reconsidering
My-
before
yeah,
there's any further, before there's any further debate.
Well,
Yeah, no,
my-
I realize
My
that.
point is, unless I'm mistaken, we will be covering it under work session discussion on the 23rd, at which point I would like
Have a
to.
work session on
We
that.
We do.
23rd?
Yes.
No.
Just-
No.
that's
Time out. Work, so.
We have
the
more
9th
discussion.
No, the 9th is a work session, the 23rd is a meeting, but you can have discussion during meetings. With that said, I'm going to call the roll on
But
Brian's.
I was looking for a vote on the 23rd. Don't you think we ought to have some preparation for that vote?
I am going to call the roll on Brian's motion to reconsider. Jenny?
No.
Dennis?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Lynn?
I'll say yes.
I'll vote yes. Okay, we're now reconsidering the motion to delete the audit committee recommendations from the agenda.
Yeah,
So we can go back to discussing the,
I think it should stay on for the presentation because I think we, just like Dick said, we really need to consider those.
I would like to see the presentation include some policy suggestions. So
I mean, I think, Dennis, you said that they're going to have policy.
They're going to talk about the potential conflict between sitting on two boards. And my thought on it is that the whole ethics discussion is so complicated, has taken a long time. If we can carve out little pieces and get them done 20 minutes at a time or 30 minutes at a time, if we can make some headway, which we have not really been able to make that much headway.
Yeah, the key thing for me is that we're moving towards a vote that'll affect policy. Otherwise, it's just,
Right.
otherwise we're not doing
productive.
anything.
So I can't speak for Michelle right now, but I would say that she has, and I spoke with her today about this in general, and what she said is although it's a subject of a lot of discussion, it's not in her mind really that complicated. And so I think she has in her mind policy that that would require you to recuse yourself if you were voting on, say, items of funding if you sat on the IAT board. So that I'm sure we could come up with what you're asking for and whether or not that would get approved.
And the
Okay.
village board too? Because that was an issue with the audit committee.
Yeah, that applies.
It was two things.
Yeah, it'd be both.
Would it cover the village board?
I'll ask. I didn't.
It specifically says service on other boards,
All
so
right,
it should
well,
cover
that is
both.
30 minutes back in there, and what I was hoping we could use some of that time for is a discussion of CA board operations, which I think is crucial, so that we could maybe vote on those on the 23rd.
Well, I think we could still do that. We could probably squeeze that in.
We did 20 minutes on the audit committee.
If we deduct
Really need that much discussion?
30 minutes from resident speaker, we could probably put 30
We did
minutes.
that, we did that already.
Oh,
And we still we had wind up with 28 minutes at the end left over, so I think,
The discussion we're talking about is not rehashing the audit committee
Right.
piece.
it's a narrow focus.
Yes,
I
let's take
understand
out the
that.
words audit committee, and let's say, to discuss the
That's a good
best
point.
practices, ethics, best
That's a
best
good point.
practices, and just scratch audit committee.
So, yeah, that's a good point.
Although this came out of the audit committee recommendation, right? That's where this came from. Number 3 is, and I purposely took the 3 out of there and put service on other boards because I wasn't sure everyone would remember what item number 3 was.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, but I don't think we have to mention the audit committee. I think the question now is not what the audit committee presented, but rather, where do we go from here? We've heard the audit committee. Now we want to hear Miles and Stockbridge, and that should clear up some.
well, yeah,
Actually,
it's Miles and Stockbridge's opinion of the recommendations of the audit committee.
Yes, it is.
So
Yes,
that's what it is.
Yeah, we don't need,
We don't need to get wrapped around the axle on the exact wording of the item.
well, what it really is recommendations to the board of directors regarding service on other boards of directors, right?
That's what it's all about.
I mean, it doesn't have to be they're limited to the audit committee recommendation. That's one lawyer's opinion. They may be coming in with, I assume they're doing their own opinion. It doesn't have to be limited to that. So I have a problem being limited to the audit committee,
It's.
which venerables
I
every
think
recommendation.
we're getting a little pedantic here.
I agree.
But the motion is still the motion on the table is still to delete this agenda item. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the roll
To
on.
delete or to bring it back?
No, we were reconsidering the motion to delete it. So the motion on the table is to delete it.
Could we make a motion to substitute instead of delete?
What do you want to substitute it with?
Substitute a discussion from Miles Stockbridge regarding best practices on ethics policies.
If you just took out audit committee, would that,
Sure.
Not best practices, that's too broad. It really is a narrow focus on serving, CA board members serving on other boards, isn't that it?
Yes.
Very narrow
Make it a
focus.
discussion of,
Is that correct?
We can just delete audit committee, make it recommendations to the board of directors regarding governance and ethics matters, service on other boards of directors.
Okay, great.
So,
Okay.
So moved.
And we leave Miles, we don't say who's
So-
doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
so
I'm just curious, how does that affect, say, service on some of the advisory committees that have, again,
those aren't boards of directors.
okay, but,
And
when we're sitting on those committees, sitting on, say, the downtown partnership, how does that?
Well, that's a board.
That would be a board.
Yeah.
if you were sitting on the Community Foundation, if we go back to that,
That would be a board.
but you wouldn't be sitting on, staff would be, so.
Just wondering where this all goes with.
No, it's a good point. With
Other
advisory
boards.
committees, some let you vote,
Yeah.
some don't let you
Right.
vote.
Yeah.
I don't know what's the
Some want money,
appropriate
some
thing.
don't.
So
But it's not all about money.
So it sounds like if you withdraw your motion, it sounds like there's general consensus to keep this, deleting the words audit committee.
Yeah,
Okay, so do you withdraw? I'll
I
move.
withdraw. You
Okay, in that
withdraw
case,
the
I'll move to delete audit
somebody
committee.
withdraw their
Yeah,
second.
you can withdraw the motion. I'll move to
Okay.
rename it, delete audit committee from agenda item 3. Can I get a second on that?
Yes,
All in favor of that?
Yeah.
All opposed? Okay, so we'll keep that for the
20
original
minutes?
amount of time.
20 minutes instead of 30?
What was the original amount of time? We'll keep that for, 30 minutes I think we'll need. Let's delete the word
Okay.
audit committee.
Okay,
And if we cut resident speak out to 30 minutes, which I think is sort of safe, that does give us 35 minutes.
okay. I'd like to, could I add another
Yeah.
thing to the work session topics, the last
Yes.
thing? Discussion of CA board operations. I think it's time we really started talking about that. And that would be, I had 40 minutes, but I think now realistically, we're lucky if we get 30.
What exactly?
Whatever you consider board operations. You've
So-
all been saying you don't like this, you don't like that,
I've been talking to
and some other things.
So I've been talking to Dennis about this, and one of the things I think we need to do as a board to help us be better organized is to actually go back to a strong committee structure. So where instead of having resolutions just, and no offense to anyone, but instead of having resolutions just sort of pop up in a meeting, we have a committee, the resolutions go through the committee actually works to craft the resolution, craft the policy, with a smaller group of people. That would take minutes. It would be open. It would be a standing committee, and then from there, once it's fully crafted, the committee would approve it. It would go to the full board. The full board would discuss, and then they would approve it. So this would at least give us some organization. It would at least give us a process for this is how a policy gets passed. This is how a resolution gets passed, and I think it'd also save us a lot of time because instead of having the work sessions, which I feel like are full meetings where we don't get to do anything because we don't vote, we'd replace those with committee meetings, and we'd also save the time because we'd also have these other committee meetings, like the risk committee, audit committee, and those could be folded into the what are now the work sessions. So I think this could be a real time saver for board members, and I think it could allow us to be a lot more efficient. Granted, I don't want to discuss the topic because this is really focusing on agenda items. But the goal is how do we want to organize and run and structure the board going forward?
So this is what would be brought up under this topic?
This would be under this topic, yes. Lynn?
I think that's a really good idea, and certainly some committee structures would I think, be very helpful. But in order to discuss it, I think, as a board member, I'd want some information about it first. What is this? Why are we bringing it up? What are, some suggestions, some background material?
That's all part of this.
Oh, okay.
So we'd have a present, what?
Oh, Alan's on.
I don't know if we think.
Alan?
I think the first step would be to have a discussion of the types of things we'd want to talk about. And that, we could do that by email beforehand, but have that be, first time we talk about be more of a brainstorming, set the context, and then who knows, maybe we'll have subcommittees to work on different things, but that makes most sense to me.
I was going to say, I think, is that you'd have a first discussion about philosophically if you want to move this concept forward and discuss it in broad detail. And then if the board votes, after that, if everyone's in agreement that it makes sense and they like it in concept, then you would work through the details.
So just a practical example, why not go back to when you asked me to form a committee to do with open space? We started a board meeting and we weren't. So the idea would have been to bring it up in a board meeting, in the work session, this concept of having a committee, and then it would be formed in that environment. Is that the idea?
So the idea would be a committee, an appropriate committee would already exist for what you want to do. So when you came up with an idea that you want to do something with open space, it would go to the appropriate committee. The committee would discuss it. They would actually, the resolutions would be crafted in the committee instead of whenever they get
But what
to.
about the actual forming of the committee?
The committee would be standing committee.
So it's just
They already exist. They would already
Well, I was
exist.
saying an additional committee, so in addition to the
thank
two
you.
standing committees, there'd be a separate open space committee. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I was using my.
I mean, yeah, you could, it could be 2 committees, it could be 3 committees, there could be any number
Or
of
would it be an
committees.
advisory committee? Are you suggesting that there would be an
No.
open space advisory committee like there's a watershed committee?
No, I was suggesting it's a board committee to make a decision on a particular item that we want to discuss. So not an advisory committee, but a public one.
No, it'd be a board committee.
Yes.
It'd be run by the board. It would operate as a subset of the board. And the board committee would be a little more, it'd probably be a little more general than just open space. It'd probably cover a wider range of topics because it would be a standing committee. But one of the committees would certainly have oversight over open space. Alan?
So, for
I'm
example,
concerned that you all are discussing the
Yeah,
pros and cons.
we're getting a
and
little ahead of
merits a
ourselves.
particular idea,
Okay.
rather than deciding whether a topic should be on the agenda for the board to
And then
discuss.
we can be
Yeah,
discussing.
I mean,
Right.
the idea is this a relevant topic? And it sounds like
yes,
it is.
It's a relevant topic. Yes.
So can I get a motion to add 30 minutes to discuss board operations and
So moved.
committees?
So moved.
Can you get a second on that? Lynn seconds. All in favor? All opposed? So we'll add 30 minutes for the discussion of board ops and committees.
So other changes I have,
Okay.
Just, and will there be an expectation of backup material on Friday for this?
I'm not sure what the backup material would be at this point.
And we could come up with some hypothetical examples. I could send you
I
some.
guess by close of business Thursday would be great, would be.
Yeah, this Thursday. Yeah, I could give you some hypothetical examples.
well, actually,
Make it-
Eric,
Andy has his hand up too.
As a
right?
starting point.
Andy?
Yeah, actually, I would like to add the topic that Dennis talked about at the beginning of the meeting, just for 10 minutes, the easement that the county's looking for, because we have 2 other easements, and let's just get them all done.
Okay.
what did he say?
Can I get a motion to add the county easement for 10 minutes?
I made the motion.
Yeah, Dennis moves. Can you get a second? How much time do we have left? I think we got 5 minutes left, if my math is correct.
Or you could take the 20 minutes we have and just divide it by 3.
We could do that too.
You said they're pretty straightforward.
Or we could just let Janet Lockburn go through and try to figure out the minutes, the time, and we can work from
I
there.
don't think it's going to take much time.
Okay. Okay, we'll give we got a motion for 5 minutes for the county easement. Moved by Dennis, second by Brian. All in favor? All opposed? That passes. Okay, thank you. Alan?
Yeah, rather than just privileging one particular idea for board operations, I would ask that you send a note out to the whole board soliciting topics that can then go into the packet,
Well,
the deadline of close of business Thursday.
I think that would be done during the meeting. What we basically want to do is just have not really privileging something, but an example. I mean, it could be, I could leave it very abstract. But the idea is to have a discussion started, and then we could discuss sort of whether or not this is a route we want. This is going to take more than one meeting, which is why we need to do it up front. So we could discuss whether or not this is a route we want to go, and then work on the details in April.
I think Alan's got a good idea there. I think we should solicit ideas, give people time to think about what some of the operation changes are that they'd like to make. If we go in with one hypothetical, it sounds like we're setting people up.
Well, it'd be abstract.
Well, I don't know how abstract you'd want to get. I would
I
suggest
was
that you,
thinking using variables.
I would suggest that Alan, you follow Alan's advice here and solicit ideas as to what operational changes people think are necessary.
Jenny?
Yeah, I would agree, because we don't know how a board member will interpret the words board operations. It may be entirely different from what we were just talking about. The other thing is, would it be possible for staff to send out, and I'm trying to think if it's in the bylaws, there are still on the books standing committees for the board that have never been repealed.
Those actually, I think.
I don't think they're not, we don't use them, but I believe they're still.
Those I believe were repealed in one of
They
them.
were repealed?
They were. I went through one of the old minutes, and I think I found a meeting where they were repealed.
Really?
It was like, you gotta go back to like 2012
I mean, just to give them an example
or
of what was a
2016.
standing committee years ago with the board.
Yeah,
I know it was.
we got them in
Well,
here.
It's okay, if they've been repealed, then, but it still would be an idea, of give them the
I
past.
mean, yeah, that's actually that's actually one way of approaching it, is let's bring up what we did in the past.
And then we all know how that worked out. but-
Yeah, we know how it worked out, but that would be we could just give a little history lesson.
Yeah, and
So we're
why-
not actually privileging any idea over any other idea, we just have a history lesson.
And why it didn't work out, would be part of the,
And yeah, so I think that might
okay.
be a way of
Could
some
Janet-
background material that
Janet be able to do that, or? Okay,
Yeah,
thank
so-
you.
So what is this, they talk about in this document, working groups. Is this the same thing, working groups?
Where are you?
No. I think they call them standing
They were
committees, but I'm
standing.
not sure.
Standing
I
committee.
wasn't on the board.
What date's on that? What's the date on that?
August 2022, this is what.
Okay, those committees were long gone by then.
Oh.
So those committees, I think, were repealed, I think in 2000, I want to say like sometime between 2012 and 2016.
No, 2022.
Yeah. So the committees, yeah, we had committees
Well,
up until,
You can see what they were.
there
whether
are
they
committees
repealed.
here in 2006, and I know they were repealed sometime between 2012 and 2016.
Okay, but the idea is to show them what did exist at one point.
Alan?
Just, they were repealed after 14 because they were here when I first started on the board.
Okay,
And they started as committees that met separately on different days of the month. And then because everybody was attending everybody else's committee meeting, it got changed so that all the
Turned to work
committees met
sessions.
during board meetings.
you know, this is the frustration about these bylaws. When you read one section, it doesn't say repealed.
Anyway, can I get a motion to move the March 9th agenda as amended?
Yeah,
Okay.
so moved.
Second by Dennis, motion by Ginny, second by Dennis. All in favor of the March 9th agenda as amended? Raise your hands. All opposed to the March 9th agenda? All abstaining from the March 9th agenda?
I was,
Oh, you approved? Okay. The March 9th agenda passes 5-0. That brings us to the March 23rd agenda. Can I get a motion to move the March 23rd agenda?
moved.
Okay, get a second. Get a second on the March. Second by Dennis. So based on what we've done here, we're going to need, at the very least, 5 minutes for the county resolution in board votes. So the chair moves to add 5 minutes to board votes for the county resolution. Can I get a second on that?
County easement?
The county easement, yeah. Can I get a second on the? Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, the county easement is added to the board votes agenda for 5 minutes.
Okay, and can we cut the resident speak out to 30 minutes?
Yeah, we can cut that to 30 minutes.
We need the time.
I think we'd also need to, we obviously wouldn't be able to vote on the, so we also added the presentation timeline of the CEO, of hiring the CEO. So could I get a motion to vote on the timeline for 5 minutes for under board votes?
So moved.
A second? All in favor?
All right.
All opposed? So that's added for 5 minutes. Motion passes unanimously. There's no way we'll be able to vote on the board ops, but I think it would be important to have that in the discussion.
What about a vote on Lake Elkhorn resolution?
It's not, it's,
under board votes for
Oh,
the
yeah,
23rd.
we need that. It's missing.
Which we will have heard on the 9th.
we'll need a.
5 minutes.
Can I get a motion to add 5 minutes for the Lake Elkhorn resolution?
Yes, so moved, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion, did you vote yes? Lynn?
Yes, I voted
Okay. The motion passes 5-0 to add 5 minutes for the Lake Elkhorn resolution. So I think that covers everything we added on the work session except for the board ops. I think we do need to add, I think we would want to continue the discussion on board ops for this meeting. So could I get a motion to add a board ops discussion for 30 minutes? Can I get a motion to add the discussion on board ops?
So moved. 30 minutes.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor?
All right.
So we'll add 30 minutes for board ops discussion. So that's, I think, everything that we've got. So I think that's everything that we've got from the previous work session. So, Jenny?
Can I move that we move the dashboard and the financial reports under questions only?
Is there a time constraint now?
Pardon me?
Is there a time constraint?
Well, if we add to this,
Because we took the 30 minutes out of the consent
we deleted the
agenda.
CA, from the vote list, from this 23rd, you've got to take off CA board work session initiatives for the upcoming fiscal year, plan strategy, whatever. If we want to add ethics code and enforcement policy and procedures, that probably needs 40 minutes or
The
something.
ethics policy is already on here.
On what?
It's already on the agenda.
Under board discussion.
It's on the agenda for
Discussion.
30 minutes.
Discussion.
Yeah.
But it only says ethics policy discussion. Do we know, should we be saying ethics code and enforcement policy and procedures?
That says the same
Make it
thing.
clear that we're going to be doing with two things, not, so there's no misunderstanding with the public, or
I mean,
is what I'm asking.
So you just want to add codes and procedures?
Well, ethics code and enforcement policy and procedures, I'm open to if that's not the right wording.
I mean, it's.
I just want to be clear on we're dealing with two documents.
I mean, it seems like this title covers what we're doing
Okay.
adequately.
I think that would be enough. But I'd like to make it a board vote.
Well, it's under board discussion right here.
Yes, but I'd like a discussion and vote.
Well, it's a board vote over here. Okay, wait a minute. Let me just add, can I add one more thing? IAT easement discussion. This is again discussion, not a vote.
That's going
About-
to be that's going to be a long,
What?
what's the backup for that? Is there backup for that? A copy of the existing easement?
I don't know if we can use a January document or what, or what.
That's old. Again, this is a legal matter, and CA doesn't have legal counsel. Certainly, the trust can hire it, but this is it's a reciprocal easement agreement. I think discussions need to be started between the two organizations to talk about how to modify things.
So
Then they can bring suggestions to the board. It's backwards for the board to try to suggest to CA without involving IAT.
I mean, it strikes me that this has to be done mutually, and you can't do something mutually by yourselves in a board meeting. So I think that there needs to be an initial step to come up with some kind of mutual plan between the two organizations.
Steps
So
to do
this,
that would be good.
so to add IAT here, I think might be a little too early.
Premature? Well, when would it be
Premature is
done?
probably a better
I've
word.
had some discussions with Nina on this, and she is willing to discuss modifying the easement. And in fact, several months ago, she even proposed to red line some of the things they'd like to do. I think it would be helpful to perhaps our board should say, here are some of the things that we're concerned about that we'd like to see changed. And then maybe there could be some private negotiation to come up with a proposal that we can bring to our board and their board.
Yeah, I don't see that happening between now and the 23rd. If what would make sense in my mind is for the two boards to actually have a discussion. This is probably where having crossover board members comes in very handy, and at least having a discussion between the two organizations on how both organizations would want to see the easement modified. But without any kind of discussion, putting this on here strikes me as very unilateral, and I don't think that's a...
Well, I would see this as starting with a discussion.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah, but this isn't a discussion.
No, yeah.
Well, it is under board
And
discussion.
you can't
No.
have 14 or
It's not really a discussion.
17 people negotiating. You can,
You also can't, I mean, this is a meeting of just, so on the 23rd is a meeting of the CA board, not the CA board and the IAT board. So you can't really have a discussion of just it's not really a discussion at that point. Susan?
I think that is what has to happen. I would think that the Columbia Association needs to come up with what they want the easement to see and to be, and then that gets presented to the Inner Arbor Trust Board. I mean, that is a negotiation, and so I would think it would need to occur in that kind of order.
yes, but Susan's absolutely right. We need to decide amongst ourselves what we would like to see in a revised easement.
Andy?
And they have to tell us what they like to see.
Andy?
And then we can have a
Alan's,
discussion.
Andy?
Two items. One, if you're going to talk about modifying an easement, which is actually the legal agreement between IAT and CA, you really want to do this. If we're going to come up with a negotiating position, we're going to do that in a closed meeting under, negotiating topics. We can close it under that. I don't think you want to do this in a public meeting to lay out your strategy and what you want. If we're going to go negotiate with IAT, I think you want to at least start that type of discussion in the closed meeting. And then, as you said, also, it would be good to have, after that, at some point, a meeting of the two boards. That was my one thing. The original thing I raised my hand is I would suggest you delete the board strategic initiatives discussion from the agenda because you took it out of the work session.
Where am I?
Under board discussion, fifth line.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that needs to come out.
So that's good.
Good catch.
Can I? So for IAT, it seems to me that, so we have the benefit of years of experience with operation. And I think it's a broader discussion about what is going to work in the woods based on our experience. And there, that business model, I don't believe works the way that it was intended to. It's not self-sustaining. And so we have to, I think, look at that in a very broad fashion and then get into the details.
Okay. So
How do we go
how
about
do you,
I think it's probably, I know we, closed session is not the two words that we don't like to use, but I would think it would have to be in a closed session.
With IAT or with?
well, no, what you'd want to do is have it in a closed session with legal counsel.
Yes.
Because you're basically referring to a contract.
I think this is difficult for the board because, again, so many members of the board don't understand the reciprocal easement. I doubt that many have read it. If you haven't read it, you should read it. You'll probably have questions about it. There are things that need to be modified, absolutely. I think Nina, I think was she asked to do that submission from January 2021?
Yes, she was.
She put it in then. I'm sure things have changed.
I mean, that's 2 years ago.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
right.
probably
And
outdated
the
by
board-
now.
And the CA board, IAT presented it to the CA board to be discussed, and the CA board never discussed it.
Right.
Things have probably changed. I don't know. You'd have to ask Nina if that was still relevant.
This is what I'd recommend. I would recommend not adding it to the agenda and setting up a closed meeting to discuss the strategy. Would be acceptable? Okay. So could you withdraw your motion to add it?
I hope sooner than later.
Okay. And I'll make a quick motion to delete the CA Board strategic plan initiatives under board discussion. Can I get a second on that?
You're deleting what? Oh,
CA,
yeah. Second.
Second. All in favor?
What are you doing?
CA Board Work Plan Initiatives,
Yeah, which we took
we
off.
deleted.
All opposed? That motion passes 5-0. So that's deleted. So now you got an extra 20 minutes.
Okay.
Thanks, Andy.
What,
So is there any other adjustments to the,
Yes, I have requested that we make a board vote on the ethics policies at that meeting.
We won't be ready to vote because we won't have the benefit of legal counsel outside the council review until that night.
I thought we had agreed that we were going to have Miles
On
Stockbridge
so on
work session.
the committee, the dual committee standing, yes, we'll have the benefit of that, but not on the
yeah, that should be on there, yeah.
enforcement piece. Are you just talking to what was item number 3? Speaking to that?
I don't have that in front of me, but
Yeah,
I was hoping that what we could do is wrap up the discussion on, there is a draft policy out there, and I'd like to see it voted on. And I think this thing has been floating for over a year. People have seen the drafts, have made their input, and we have a document that needs an up or down vote. And I know there are individuals who like to see this drag on, but I'd like to bring it to a close.
well,
Lynn?
Yeah, I would like to ask, though, if we're going to have a vote on this, like, I haven't been on the board, most of the year. We have 2 brand-new members on the board who haven't dealt with this at all. We need to have some mechanism to
Yeah.
bring everybody up to speed. It's not fair, especially to the new members, to say, okay, fine, now you have to vote on this, and it's like, what? We need, how do we bring them, how do we give them the information they need, or give them the tools to get the information they need?
So we would only be ready to vote on the policies that come out of serving on 2 boards. That is the piece that we would be ready to vote on the 23rd. The rest of this would be for discussion purposes only. It would not be a vote. I don't see any way. It's too important an issue. It's been the subject of a lot of discussion, and there have been a lot of different drafts that have circulated back and forth. So I don't think we want to rush it. And there's already a policy. There's already ethics policy that has been signed at this point in time. So I don't see that we need to rush and vote on that day.
Ginny?
yeah, we have it on the agenda for April 13th for another discussion because Ethics Policy Code has been around for a lot and gotten a lot of discussion, but the enforcement policy and procedures are just really will be hitting the public on March 23rd as the first time. So if somebody says we need a second hearing, April 13th would be that, and then it would be both on for a vote for April 20th.
And you would need 3 hearings.
According to Janet,
You would need 3 hearings.
Janet Evans said to me when I asked for another hearing on the advisory committee, the chair decides whether a third hearing is necessary or not.
So the chair would, in this case, would have to decide the ethics policies require 3 hearings because last year it came up that we need 3 hearings and the board specifically said we need 3 hearings. So for the chair to say we only need 2 hearings would be actually going against what this board decided to do last April. So ethics policy, any changes to the ethics policies are considered major changes, which would be 3 hearings.
Well, then we can't vote on April 27th.
Yeah,
That's not.
this really infuriates me. We only have 2 more sessions where we can vote. The last session is in April. That's it. And then I'm off the board, and this thing will never get passed. I have tried for 6 years to get this thing done. And now we are stuck with a horrible, badly written set of policies that was written by one of Sherry Fanaroff's consultants. This thing, I'm tired of this stalling. I am tired of this stalling. We can have a discussion. I can present a draft enforcement policy that we can discuss at our next meeting. We can discuss it. And then we can discuss it again at the meeting after that, and then we can discuss it at the first April meeting. But I'd like to see a vote on it, and I'm tired. I just can't believe it takes a year since we've been discussing this thing to get it done. I just want to get it done. And now you're pushing it back to May, and June, and July, and forever.
So there's
I want it done.
there's plenty of time to have 3 readings by the end of the year. There's a sufficient number of work sessions and meetings where we can have 3 readings and get a vote by the end of the year.
You guarantee that, because the last time you guaranteed something, we were going to deal with this in January. And then that got slipped back to February. And now it's being slipped back to March.
Can we hear what Eric means by we can do it?
So there are 4 sessions.
Yeah.
There's 2 work sessions in March and 2 work sessions in April. So that adds up to 4. All you need is 3 readings, so it needs to be presented at 3 of those sessions. So there is plenty of time to have 3 readings and schedule a vote. The problem last year is that it came up in April when there's only 2 meetings left, so you didn't have time. So right now there is still time to have the requisite 3 meetings and a vote.
Well, help me with one thing, though.
But I can't guarantee anything. The board makes the decisions.
Nothing's happening on March 9th currently. March 23rd, it will be up for a discussion. April 13th, if it gets approved, it'll be up for discussion.
You need to have a discussion on April 13th.
What?
You would need to, it actually is on this. It's already on there.
No,
Yeah.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
I'm trying to say that's
Yeah.
2. And then the vote would be April 27th, which doesn't, you're saying we
Yeah, at
need
that point,
3.
you got 3. The vote counts as the 3rd.
Oh, okay.
The vote
Because
is
you discussed the vote.
Discuss,
Okay.
discuss, vote.
All right,
1,
okay.
2, 3.
Had I just said that at the beginning, it would have ended this discussion. Okay. So it can be accomplished then. Okay.
Yeah.
As Janet says, the chair makes the decision. Okay.
Okay.
That's,
Any other,
Oh, the enforcement piece.
you can do both, yeah.
yeah, it's both
you can do both.
documents, both
Because what I
documents.
can do is,
Okay,
As long
let's-
as on the
Both documents.
packet
Business
for the
Stockbridge
23rd.
has a copy of the final draft of the Code of Conduct. I can provide a first draft of the enforcement mechanism
Worked on one.
that
Josh's
Miles and
work.
Standish can look at
We
and
don't
maybe
need-
discuss. If it doesn't, if there are
All
problems
right,
with
well, we
it,
can-
discuss
You
it
can handle it.
All right,
at
where
the
are
first meeting in
We're,
March.
we're,
March 23rd?
So they're not going to be ready at the first meeting in March. I think that's off the table. Plus, we're past the first meeting in March
Yeah,
right now. We're
March
in the
is
second.
done.
We're done the first
Yeah.
meeting.
We're on March 23rd.
so I
think we're done with
I think we're March 20th. I think we're done with March 23rd.
Yeah, because we
So
moved
can I,
dashboard down, right? That's
so can I-
okay with
can I
everybody and
move-
financial
So can I move
questions only?
can I move the question?
To what? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I had said we were
Well,
moving. recommend-
actually, I think that there's enough time to discuss it, but what I would like to do is just move the ethics policy discussion and the operations discussion up front.
Okay,
And then in case we run out of time, the dashboard and financial reports could become questions only. So with that said.
okay, first is ethics and the second is operations.
Yeah, operations. So with that said, I will call a question on moving the March 23rd agenda as amended.
Second, so moved, whatever.
Jenny,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Brian?
I'll just got one question. Did you put time for the Lake Elgon resolutions in?
Yeah, that should be 5 minutes for a vote.
It's under board vote.
Okay.
Yeah,
Vote Lake Elkhorn.
Yeah, Lake Elkhorn should be on there for 5 minutes.
Yes.
Brian will discuss it. No, I'm kidding.
Lynn?
Yes.
I vote yes. The motion passes 5-0. On to
All righty.
April 13th.
This is an easier one. There's not much.
So this is can I get a motion to move the work session agenda for April 13th?
So moved. April 13th, so moved.
I'll second that. Any discussion on the
Yeah.
agenda?
Change the resident speak out to 30 minutes. It's starting to get redundant. Handbook, scratch handbook,
So we got a
delete
motion.
handbook.
We got a motion to delete the agenda item CA handbook.
Because I want to substitute board, whatever we're calling it, operations, which might need about an hour there. We're going to be discussing this quite a bit.
Okay, so I got a motion to replace the CA handbook for 20 minutes with a discussion on the board operations committee for 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Second.
I got a motion by Jenny, second by Dennis. All in favor? All opposed? That change has been made, so we'll do board operations for 50 minutes.
And ethics policy is 30 minutes.
That's already on there.
Yeah, I know.
Is 30 minutes enough time?
Well, we have 30, how many minutes on the 23rd?
So you picked up 30 for residents.
Yeah, but we already used it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I already spent it on the board ops because that got moved from 20 to 50.
If the board votes, we can add 15 minutes, if, you know, I mean, we discussed the code ad nauseum, right? So it's just really the enforcement.
So is there anything else that needs to be adjusted on this agenda?
Let's just see. Oh, may I ask a question? Who is handling state and local legislation now?
Paul Taberzi.
Who?
Paul Taberzi,
No, I mean.
outside counsel.
Down in Annapolis, yeah, but no, I mean up here where they're supposed to look at that chart, the local bills that make us aware of the state bills. Who's doing that our general counsel's supposed to do?
He's also doing that, right?
He put that together last time?
Yeah.
So he's doing that as well. He's doing both.
Paul?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Any further comments, discussions on the April 13th work session?
Looks like there's hardly anything on there. Are we missing something important?
Can I have a question? It says questions only on Spotlight on Columbia.
Yeah.
And so who's doing the Spotlight on Columbia? What's that? What
Is
is that?
Jessica back?
Jessica's doing the spotlight on Columbia. She won't be able to attend the meeting, but she'll do the spotlight.
Okay, cool.
Well, I was thinking we should, on Columbia, I would like to sort of move that we do have a discussion on Columbia to this meeting, on this meeting.
What do you mean?
In particular on the CA and the covenants in Columbia, and especially when you're talking about issues related to what the county's doing in its regard to not following the covenants in Columbia and the complexity of the covenants. It seems to ought to be made, that should be something that we have a discussion on, especially as we've got a topic like Columbia. And in particular, I'm following up on that John Healy talk we had at the Hawthorne Centre back in November, where he really brought to light some of the issues that we're facing. And it's another thing, it's rather like the stormwater thing, you know, we're being dumped on by the county in that respect. And the same thing when it comes to Columbia, the county is not stepping up to the plate in really helping us to enforce the operation of Columbia. They're actually making things more difficult.
Why would the county be assisting us in our covenants?
But they're not.
Why would they be?
Well, the thing
our
is
job?
that it's rather like, let's take the example, because we struggled with this with Lakeview and then Woodmere. So if we don't actually define what's supposed to happen with redeveloping in Columbia, then what we end up doing is putting out fires. And Jessica did a great job in representing the CA with Woodmere and Lakeview. But the point is we really need a fix for that. We need to think start the conversation and have a position for Columbia redevelopment that's really clear. And it seems like that might be a good place to put that in.
So I got a recommendation for you. So I think this agenda is actually fairly full at this point. There is 25 minutes on the next agenda, and if this is not leading to a board vote, we could add that discussion for the April 27th discussion.
A discussion on the board, or maybe
No, discussion on what you're discussing. Well, add to the discussion topics.
Maybe we should invite John Healy to give a presentation to the board so we understand the issues involved.
Yeah, we could. I guess my recommendation is, could we add that to the 27th under board discussions?
Okay.
Because there's 25 minutes there. Jenny?
Yeah, just one thing. Did we miss on the 23rd a vote on the timeline for hiring the president CEO?
I thought that was in there. I know we talked about it.
Sorry about that.
I thought I added that.
It's on my, I got it here. It's for 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Okay,
Pretty sure
okay.
we added that.
All right. I had it on mine, but I wasn't sure we actually, I would like to consider adding on the 13th, under work session topics, something that I think is extremely important, and that would be start a discussion on CA board easement policies and procedures. What exactly are they? Can they be improved, et cetera, as it relates to open space, and especially, well, a lot of things. Are we following whatever regulations under covenants we should be? Are we getting?
Does this go back to what? Is this connected to what Brian was discussing?
Well, this is a very narrow focus.
This is a completely different thing.
Okay.
I think what Jenny, well, do you want to?
I want to double back. I had my hand up before.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it's very important that we get a timeline on the CEO.
Yeah, that was.
But there's another thing too, and that is we are hiring a general counsel. And while that's not a board decision, I certainly would like to know where we stand on that and what the timeline looks like, what the job description is and the reporting description. And we had some problems the last time around when it came to hiring a general counsel. I'd like to get some kind of feedback on just how that process is going.
Do you have a timeline on that?
So there's no timeline on that right now. And, I don't know that I would say that you're going to vote on a timeline for the replacement of the president.
Yep.
And then depending on what happens with the next board, whether they honor that timeline would then dictate probably when you would hire a general counsel.
Okay.
If they speed up the process, which they could do, they could vote to speed it up, in which case you would wait for the new president. We have representation now. We have in-house, we have Caroline, and we have outside counsel, so we're covered.
Okay.
So I'm not worried about that piece of it. But I would say that would be something that the new board would take up underneath the guise of the replacement board.
Okay. If that sounds reasonable, if as long as we're covered,
We're covered.
then I'm happy.
And
I forgot we had another attorney. so-
Yeah, one quick thing on the when we take a vote on the audit committee recommendations, it'd probably be a good idea to have outside counsel present in case there are any discussions.
Yeah.
We could just
On
on the board vote too.
the April, whatever.
Yeah. No, it would be
It's March
the
23rd.
What is it?
March 23rd.
March 23rd. In case because there'll probably be questions.
Got it.
Lynn?
Yeah, when we talk about we're covered with outside counsel, does we also include the board? Is there a dual report there? Can we also, how does that?
So you'd have to give me specific examples. So if something comes up, let's say there have been minor things that have come up that we have taken to outside counsel, which I don't want to talk about in open session necessarily, but yes, so I would say at this point in time I'd have to have a specific example to understand what you might want to cover. That
Hopefully nothing.
Right, I understand hopefully nothing, but I can't think of anything we're not covered for right now. The few things that have come up, we have covered.
I guess the only thing that wouldn't be covered is having someone physically present, an attorney physically present during the meetings.
But we can cover that as needed.
Yep.
Yeah, so going back to what Ginny was talking about with the easements, for the board to understand the different aspects to it, the sort of the valuation of it, whether a third party should evaluate these easements. Let me give it the example. A lot of the easements are really just like we talked about, added to the agenda. They're quick and easy. But of course, we've got the other example of the easement for the watershed, for the Lake Elkhorn one. It's very complex. And they obviously they were treated the same. And sort of now we sort of got to go back and try and understand that, and that's why these things are on the agenda. But it'd be handy for the board and future boards to understand that these easements and what the different aspects to it are. You know, about the whole process, so that when it comes to the board, they're very clear what they're authorising. Does that?
Yeah, and it's a little bit more than that. I really, just my sense is, it's really not clear what the role of the board is regarding easements. It seems to be all over the place.
The board approves all easements.
No.
Yeah, yes, that is.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, all right, let me do it again. One, the process we're using, and I'm actually working with somebody to develop a resolution on this, so I'll have the specifics but in terms of HOA, can you do anything, if it's a contract, a settlement, a license, or something else where it is not, the board has no role in the thing? Is that legal or isn't it? The value of the land, we don't always get what the value of the land is done by a third party, so that we know whether we are getting fair amount of money back under a contract or a settlement or a license. The process that's involved, why is that, since it's open space, HOA, why are we allowing contracts, licenses, or settlements to be done as opposed to the easement process? And the other thing is that we really make sure we have what exactly the value is of the easement, what is it going to be used for, and that's in the contract so it can't be used for anything else, and that if the ownership changes, it's not valid. So there should be a list of conditions that the board and the public are aware of, and that will be the board's policy in terms of doing easements. And we won't have these things that have been going on, contracts, licenses, settlements, all the stuff that really is not seen by the public.
So keep in mind easements go beyond a policy. I think it's actually in our charter.
Or procedures, policies and procedures is what I mean.
No, the easements actually go beyond that. It's actually in our governing documents, how we handle easements. So
what?
Our governing documents, the high-level documents that run the organization, it's above policy. So how we handle easements is actually, and any kind of land sales, that's all in the, it's all in the high-level governing documents above bylaws. I think it's in the charter if you go through that. So you got to be very careful if you're going to draft a policy, because it's got to be consistent with our charter.
Yeah.
And our charter pretty much covers it, so I'm not quite sure what.
And how do we get contracts, settlements, and licenses on public land, on our open space?
Well, contracts are not necessarily easements.
Well, you get use of the land for profit. What?
And an easement creates a property right in perpetuity, where a license agreement, I have to sign a license agreement for a Girl Scout troop that wants to do a walk around Lake Kitt. It's a lot different than easement in perpetuity for basically giving up some rights. So they are completely separate and different. And there are probably, in the course of a season, there must be 30 or 40, 50 license agreements that come through open space for Girl Scout troops, for runs that use a little bit of open space that traverse across some of our property, that happen on a regular basis that we do. But they don't. That's not assigning anyone a permanent right.
They don't have a right to. They don't have a right to the property. They've got a license to use it for a particular time frame, but they don't have a right to make changes or anything.
Well, excuse me, the
Anyway,
restaurant down.
I'll get to Alan. Alan?
Yeah. Oh, I think it looks like Andy's hand was up before mine was.
Andy?
Yeah, I just want to say, April's last month of the term with this board, and these issues here, easements contract, are probably better to bring up at the new board, because you're going to have to rediscuss them at the new board anyway. And so I think you might want to consider that there may be some new members on the board. And anything we discuss here that's really detailed, that's going to require change of policy, is going to have to be re-explained to those members. So you might as well just start the discussion in May with the new board and let them handle it.
Alan?
Well, I will confess I don't quite get Andy's argument, but be that as it may. Easements, I don't believe, there is a discussion in the charter of who we can sell land to, but I don't, when I first got on the board, easements, or just before, easements were handled by the president. And then after the Inner Arbor Corporation easement happened, or maybe it was before that, it was before that, the board said we need to get a handle on this, and the board started approving easements. So I don't think that it's in our charter how to handle easements. But and I do agree that easements are very different than settlements or other things that I think are worthy things for us to discuss, but very different than easements.
Dick?
A little history. Alan is correct. There was a time when the board did not approve easements. There were some problems, and the board created a policy where we would approve easements. And in that same policy, as I recall, there was also that we would approve leases. And there was a typo in the policy, and they wrote leaves instead of leases. And the board was stumped as to what that meant and decided to drop the word out. But the original intent was that leases would also be something that would be of concern to the board. And I think our recent experience with the lakefront is a reason why we want to look at leases.
Jenny?
Yeah, I can see, we don't care about a one-day license for the Girl Scouts to run around the lake and stuff like that. I'm talking about when a profit organization gets CA open space for a period of time where they are making a profit. And I think the settlement, the license is clearly that. And I think the lakefront thing is clearly that. We get the pavilion only on July 4th. So, yeah, that's pretty serious. And the board not to have been involved in that, or more importantly, a public hearing so that the public can have a say. I'm not saying you wouldn't get the same results, but it doesn't seem right that you can do something like that with a contract. It just doesn't seem right that a private sector profit organization is making money, and we can't guarantee that we've gotten a fair deal and that there are protections. So that's what I'm talking about. It's a much higher level than the Girl Scouts running around the lake and a license. I don't care about that, and I think you know that. Yeah. So I think it's a serious issue, and it's been bothering me for quite a while. And Andy, to respond to your point, then you might as well say, well, this board or any board works through March. They don't work in April. You were elected to work the entire term and to do whatever you can, and then the next board can undo it, they can add to it, or we can say, well, we got so far on this issue, and we hope the next board will pick it up. But you're hired to, or hired, I wish we were, you are just, elected to do your job through the entire term. So I respectfully disagree on we shouldn't handle things in April.
So I'll point out, in our charter, Article 5, Section 3 basically says the corporation shall in no case sell or donate any of its property or assets or make loans to any person other than the state of Maryland, et cetera, and unless unless the Board of Directors shall first pass a resolution, A, finding that such action is to be taken exclusively for the promotion of the social welfare of the people of Columbia, then it goes B, C, and D. These, when we pass an easement, the text from this section is actually in the resolution. So when we pass a resolution, we're actually following our charter, and we pass a resolution saying that it's got to meet these specific things. Every easement has it. Every resolution where we pass an easement has the I think it's 4 things that we have to decide that this easement is for the benefit of the welfare of the people of Columbia. And we do that every single easement. And we do that because it's in our charter. So again, when we're talking about easements, it's beyond policy. We've got to follow our charter. So I'm not quite sure where we're trying to go with this.
Well, I can give an example where we're going with this. Is just trying to understand the actual easement that's being presented to us, so you can make sure that they're meeting those 4 things that you just said.
Yes, I mean that's our role as a board, is we need to
Right. So
understand
we need
it.
the information to do that.
Yeah, that's why every easement is on for board discussion during a work session and on for a board vote.
Well,
So we get that information and we have the necessarily knowledge to vote on it.
Well, you're okay, you're saying we can't change the charter, is that what you're saying?
No,
Because if we were to look at that policy.
You got to follow the charter.
Well, if we were to look at that policy and find that there's something missing and we need to add something, you're saying we can't do that in a bylaw change or something?
So
Just deal with, in addition to charter
I mean,
policy? I
mean,
mean,
you
if
could-
there's something missing in the charter because they didn't think of it, and when we have
I-
a hearing on this and somebody says you really should do
I
something.
guess the question is what's missing.
Huh?
What's missing?
Well, that's why you have a hearing where the public gets a chance to say what they're thinking, and maybe somebody comes up with some things that are missing.
Are you talking easements? Because we do have public, it goes into the package.
No, I'm talking about not the specific easement, the policy and procedures. Are they adequate to what we've been doing?
Well, this is.
It's not, you don't pick a specific one. I'm saying the policy of procedure.
It's charter.
How is what we're doing not adequate? We have 2 public meetings, one to discuss and one to discuss and vote on these easements. And Dennis always comes to us with a big packet full of why this easement makes sense or doesn't make sense. And we're following
the charter.
the charter.
Well, then
What's
how,
missing?
well, I
What's
still.
missing?
I still say, how did we wind up with a contract down there on significant?
That was a lease. That was
Huh?
a lease.
No, it's a
and-
contract in the lakefront. It's a, well, did you?
That's a lease.
It's a lease? When,
It's a
okay.
lease, and it should have been something that would go to the board, but we took out the word leaves and didn't
so we
replace it.
can put that back
Yes,
in
we
on the
can put that
hearing.
back in.
But you're not gonna do
Not
this-
this charter, because that would require a change to the charter.
No.
I don't, if you can't do something that you know is, think is
We would not
wrong,
have to
we're
change
in
the charter to
trouble.
put
We are in real trouble.
leases back in the policy. There's nothing in the charter that prevents
The word leaves is actually in the chart. I believe that's in the charter, that issue.
this.
Yeah,
You
it's in the
find
same.
it, go ahead and find it in your.
Okay, I'm just saying, if
Alan
we're on
and
the
I'll go
agenda,
searching
we would
again.
debate it then. Shouldn't be debating it now. It's whether you think it's a significant enough issue to just discuss it. We may wind up, no.
Alan?
I would just say if the charter is silent on something, then yes, the board, either in a bylaws change or a policy, can do something. We can't violate the charter, but we can augment it.
That's what I was asking. Well, I just see the whole thing as something worth looking at, what CA's practice has been. I think it's serious. And we'll see what would happen at a public hearing and what other people think. If you guys don't want to do it, I'm just moving it. And
There's
like,
nothing, no, I don't think there's anything in the charter that prevents the board from approving leases.
okay, so the motion, and you can not second it, and you can kill it. I don't care.
So,
CA Board discussion, work session discussion for April 13. CA Board easement policy and procedures,
So
20 minutes.
Basically, it's not an easement policy and procedures, it's a policy on leases. That's what you're getting at, right? You're concerned about approving leases.
What scares me is if we say leases and then somebody the next, you wouldn't do this, but we'll call it a contract, then what?
Is it a lease? I mean, a lease is a type of contract.
To me, it should be an easement, not a permanent easement, but they certainly, all this is year-round.
So
Pretty permanent.
So all easements come to the board for approval.
All what?
All easements come to the board for approval.
Yes.
So I don't think we need to make any policy regarding easements. That's well covered in our charter. All of them come to the board for approval. So unless you want all lease agreements to come to the board for approval, I'm not sure how many of those we get per year.
No, I don't, on open space.
I don't know how many, I have to look, it's not.
And I
it's
don't
not
want them
one.
if they're for a nonprofit group that's just a day, a week, a month, a couple of days. I'd want it when it's really a profit group that's going to and is making a profit.
The previous policy said leases. We can put the word leases back into the policy. That's not a problem.
All right, so you're saying CA Board policy and procedures regarding leases to profit
You
organizations?
don't have to put any qualifications on it.
You don't need to, you could have
It said leases.
you could just say property leases.
CA Board
Say that
policy and
again.
procedures.
I didn't hear you, Eric, sorry.
So I think the motion is to add, what do you want, 15 minutes of discussion to
Yeah.
discuss CA policy regarding property leases.
So the one thing I want is we're discussing the.
Open space, it's
Right,
only
right,
on
open
open.
space, but it's just that, so there is value that, this, it's certainly a for-profit. We want a restaurant to be successful. We lost Clyde's. And we definitely need that activation on the lakefront. So
Yeah.
this is not, this is something that benefits Columbia residents and it benefits Columbia generally. So I just want to say that it's
I
not.
agree.
This is more than just somebody who's making money and we walked away and said, make your money.
No, I don't disagree with that, but I don't see why it wasn't done in public, and I think you probably have 10
Dick,
votes on the board
Dick,
agreeing with you.
Dick.
But that's the
Dick,
pavilion
Dick,
is
Dick.
something else.
Dick,
I'm not criticizing that easement or that lease.
it's a lease.
I'm not criticizing it at all. I think what has people upset was the board didn't know anything about it. The board had asked about it several times.
Over a
and
year.
Then was quite surprised to find out that a lease had been signed in December. And we had, and I'm not, you're not responsible for this. This was previous management. But the board did not know that probably our most valuable piece of property had been leased out
Right.
without any notification of the board. That was what's got a lot of people upset.
And for
But-
what price? And was that
I
reasonable?
mean, all we wanted to know was, because Ginny kept asking, what's the story here? What's the story here? And
I mean,
that was the problem. That
So-
was the only
so-
problem. But I think,
Janet
yes,
Evans was supposed to be
I agree with you.
asking.
So it-
Having, giving that, or letting that land be used by the new restaurant, which I'm hoping will open someday, was a good move.
Yeah.
I like seeing people out there. I like seeing tables out there. I like to see
Yeah.
the urban
That
scene.
part.
But we would just want to know about it.
And I'm not sure about the pavilion part where we only get one
so
day, but
I don't think we need to
All
pass
right, so
the.
how do I word this?
So I-
You-
so-
Easements. That's all.
No.
It's not
he's
easement.
saying-
It's not
saying
easement.
leases.
It's not an easement.
Excuse me, Leases, I'm sorry.
Okay, so where to go? CA Board policy and procedures regarding leases on open space. I don't want the buildings, the leases on open space.
So do we?
And you want me to leave off for-profit organizations?
It doesn't matter. Do we? Is there? Is there? Do we have an existing policy that
don't-
we're
that's what
referring to?
Let's make this.
What?
I don't think we have a policy.
Okay,
Okay. So you want to add 20 minutes to discuss creating a policy regarding CA leases?
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
All right, come on. You're going to have we spent 20 minutes.
I'm not sure how
here.
you're going to cover this topic in 10 minutes.
No, 20 minutes. You got time.
I'm not sure how you're going to cover this topic in 20 minutes.
Yeah, 20 minutes. Well, I want to, you give it a shot and see what happens.
You can always extend if we need more than 10 minutes.
So, well, I'll
20 minutes.
we'll call it 20 minutes. Granted that,
Yeah.
we're well over the time frame doing this, but I'll add, Lynn?
If we're going to do that, how many situations like this happen a year?
Not many.
I mean,
I'm trying to think, I don't know offhand. I'm trying to think of an actual lease for open space that would fall into the for-profit category, and there really is just, now in my mind, I can only think of the one.
Ryan?
Yeah, I'm trying to clarify what Ginny started talking about, and then we seemed to migrate away. She's talking about easements, and then we suddenly went into these leases.
So
I don't think we've resolved the easement part of it. We talked about the particular
So
definition.
I'll clarify. So easements are in our charter. Whenever an easement comes before the board, we have to vote to pass a resolution basically stating that the easement is for the social, the general welfare of all of Columbia. And then there's a couple other criteria that we also vote on.
What the questions come up with, did we have the necessary information to do that? That was the point.
I mean, when easement comes before the board, we get a packet that has information on it. It has all the engineering diagrams or topography diagrams that show where the easement is. We get a presentation generally from the requester. It's depending on the complexity of the easement, it could be a 10-minute discussion, it could be a half-hour discussion, where the board members are free to ask any questions they'd like. So the easement process that we currently have in place, the board should have sufficient amount of information to make that vote the meeting afterwards.
Okay.
The question that Ginny's posing is the concept of leases, and
Well, I
this
get that bit, Eddie.
and the lease thing seems to be focused on one particular occurrence.
Two.
What's the other one?
What's the other one?
Symphony of Lights, settlement license.
Oh.
I'm sorry, both of
That's a
those
license,
are
not a
big
lease.
issues as far as, what?
That one's a license.
That's a license.
Oh, dear.
Lynn?
See, that's what I'm worried about. We
Some
say
of the
one thing. and-
underlying issue on this is fair market value. What is fair market value? How important is fair market value in terms of being a 501c4? You know, being an HOA. Where does all that fit?
Right.
I don't know.
Alan?
That's what I want us to
It
get.
sounds like a similarity here is when we are doing something that will benefit a for-profit company.
Right.
And that could be a license, it could be a contract, it could be a lease, it could be an agreement, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That may be the factor that we want to focus on rather than whether it is a lease, a contract, or a license, or anything else.
That's where fair market value could be determined.
How do you define fair market value for a lot of these things? It's
And so some of the runs that take place are run by an organization that's what they do. The guy does that for a living. And so he's for profit. Now it's a benefit to the people that are in the event, but he can't stay in business. He can't provide that service unless he makes enough money to make a living. So that would be, I guess, the definition of for profit. So that's one of those that would fall in there, and that there are runs that take place that we give license agreements for on a fairly regular basis. We don't allow them around Lake Elkhorn, Wild Lake, Lake Kidd, but if they're over in Patuxent Trail, there's parts of that are our property. We have to provide license agreements. So that's, I think you'd have to say technically that's a for-profit event, even though it definitely benefits Columbia residents. Then there's the other, so like at the lakefront, there's the whole issue of that place has been vacant for a long time, and taking into consideration that we need someone down there. So there is the fair market value, the extenuating circumstances. There's all kinds of things that play into that.
Exactly, and sort of how does that fit and where do we fit with it? I mean, fair market value, the $1,400 that we got less than what Clyde's was paying is a drop in the bucket for anybody, for the restaurant, for CA, for anybody. That wasn't going to determine whether or not offshore opened or made a profit.
Howard Hughes should be interested in that in order to get a tenant. They're the ones that should be giving the first couple of months free or the first 6 months free. That's Howard Hughes' problem.
Yeah.
Ours, I'm not objecting to them taking that space. I just want to make sure it's done in the public area and it's fair value, reasonable value, yeah. But if we're going to play games with, oh God, lease versus license now,
Who's got their hand up?
I know it's probably not the open space that you're thinking of, but there are many leases of village space that's technically open space to for-profit entities that are just a matter of course. So there's driving schools that lease the space. The ballet school in Long Reach was a for-profit entity for decades. There are many examples of this throughout the Columbia Association.
yeah, but
Space.
you don't handle those leases, the village board.
Well, we do
does.
sign off on those, but they enter into them themselves.
contract
Some of it's on open space.
Right.
Some of those things happen outside.
Yeah.
So
And the leases we review also and sign off on.
I think the tricky part here is we're trying to develop a policy to basically apply. This is basically in response to something that happened a couple years ago.
Well, you don't want it to continue to happen, and some of these have to be renewed, I hope. So this would cover them when you go to renew them.
But anyway,
Why we're discussing this here, we're here to discuss agenda.
yeah. So the question is.
License or license on,
The question is, and I'll call the question is to add 20 minutes to the agenda to discuss leases and the policy regarding leases and licenses.
yeah,
I will call the roll. Jenny,
yes.
Dennis,
Yeah.
Brian,
Yes.
Lynn.
I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say no also. So I'll get a motion to move the agenda. Okay. I'll call the roll. I'll second that
This is the agenda for the 20th,
for the 13th.
13th.
Jenny, I'm moving the agenda.
Yeah.
Dennis,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. Last thing is the agenda for the 27th. The thing we'll need to add is 15 minutes for voting on the board ops. I think everything else should be.
Taking 30 minutes off, resident speak out again.
Can't take
Yeah.
30 minutes off, resident speak out.
And I think that came off on the 13th as well,
It did.
30
Yeah.
minutes.
And we
So,
added
I'd like
CA
to-
discussion.
Yeah, first I'll just want to move to add 15 minutes to vote on the board operations.
Which month are we on now?
The last
April 27th.
April 27th, last one. Yes,
And there is the vote in there?
Yes.
yes. So can I get a second on moving the,
Second.
all in favor?
Yes.
Okay, that seemed to be voted yes, Jenny?
Yes.
Okay, so that passes unanimously, so we'll add 15 minutes for the board ops vote,
How much time was that?
15 minutes.
Okay.
And so, Brian, did you want to add?
You suggested 25 minutes
Yeah, for,
for CA discussion on
What's the title of
covenants and redevelopment,
that would be under board discussion.
board discussion, yeah.
Okay, 25 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, can I get a second on that motion?
Second.
Any discussion on it?
Just what's the backup?
What's the backup meaning?
What goes in the packet?
Yeah, okay.
What goes in the packet?
What goes in the packet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then I need to get this, what goes in the packet written up before this week?
Before.
Yeah.
Week before.
So you got plenty of time.
You got time, but it'd be nice to know what's going to go out there.
Okay. Now, as far as what You mean, what you want to set up exactly defining exactly what the discussion is about? What I was going to suggest that we centre it around the talk by John Healy, because he basically would start the discussion off, and
So
maybe
this
it could
is-
even be a presentation.
So basically, you want to invite John Healy to give a presentation?
Yes,
Okay. Then that would be the backup.
that'd be the backup.
Okay. Okay, all in favor of adding the covenants discussion?
Yep.
Yep, yep.
Okay. All opposed? It passes. Any further discussion on the agenda for the 27th?
We cover
Is
everything.
I hate to be a broken record here, but
Ethics policy and
is
code.
it for a vote or discussion?
Vote, it's a 15-minute vote.
Ethics policy or ethics code and
The ethics policy,
Enforcement
which
and
covers all
procedures.
the ethics policies, 15-minute vote.
whole thing's there.
So it's in there.
Thank you.
Anything,
That's why I come out on a rainy night.
Thank you for reminding me.
any other discussion on the agenda? Okay, can I get a motion to move the agenda as amended?
So,
Okay, motion by Dennis, second by Brian. All in favor? All opposed? The agenda is so moved.
and we got 26 minutes left on that one.
So we're getting early.
We used it. Come on.
I don't have any administrative items, do you? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any objections? Meeting's adjourned.